Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the virtual program today, Keys to Strategic Planning with Dr. Joree Jones. I'm Brittany Spillman, and I serve as the Carey Center Director of Community and Collegiate Programs. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank this year's sponsors. This virtual program's presenting sponsor is the Walker Area Community Foundation. The Walker Area Community Foundation is a nonprofit grant-making organization building the permanent capital needed to daily facilitate community conversations, inspire action, and empower partners. This year's community and collegiate program sponsors have pledged to support our efforts in providing meaningful programming for the nonprofit sector. Thank you to Auburn University Outreach, the East Alabama Community Foundation, the River Region United Way, Auburn University Outreach Office of Public Service, Social U, the Drummond Thorne Stooks Fund for Excellence, and a community service grant made possible by State Senator Randy Price and State Representative Joe Lovern. Dr. Joree Jones is currently a consultant and grant writer working with nonprofits. Dr. Jones retired as the Dean of Institutional Advancement and Effectiveness from Chattahoochee Valley Community College in Phoenix City, Alabama in August of 2020. She spent 24 years in higher education, working in the areas of institutional effectiveness, accreditation, marketing, grant writing, fundraising, and strategic planning. Dr. Jones has provided numerous workshops and sessions on accreditation, fundraising, and strategic planning. She served on statewide committees in Alabama's two-year college system as an evaluator for Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges in the area of institutional effectiveness. Dr. Jones worked with several college foundations and nonprofits in fundraising initiatives and planning. Dr. Jones earned her certificate in fundraising management from the fundraising school at IUPUI. For 6 years, she was an adjunct instructor for Auburn University Montgomery, teaching a graduate course in grantmanship and fundraising. In addition to her work in higher education, she also worked for the Masonite Corporation, worked in the banking industry, and owned her own business. Dr. Jones has worked and serves in the community in a variety of ways, including civic, church, school, and nonprofits. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jones as she shares about the keys to strategic planning.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here today. Brittany knows that because I signed on an hour earlier this morning. So I hope that everyone is ready to learn a little bit more about strategic planning. Um, this is our topic for today and something that I think is very, very important. So I'm going to hold on just a second, this out of the way. So yeah, there we go.
While you do
See.
that, Joree, just to let you know, we are pretty split. About 25% are executive directors, 25% work in development, 25% work as a staff member, and between board members and volunteers, there's 25% also.
Okay, well, that's great. We got a good diverse group represented here. Well, thank y'all for being here. So again, let's just say we're going to get started. I'm really appreciative of Brittany and them for inviting me to share with y'all today in the Carey Center and the wonderful work that they're doing to help people in the nonprofit industry. Um, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. You can stop anytime, and then we'll also allow for a little bit of time at the end for any follow-up questions. So let's get started and see where we're going to go. Okay, when I was sitting down to start talking about strategic planning, the first thing that came to mind was almost that deer in the headlight look I get from people sometimes when they go, oh, we're going to do a strategic planning workshop, or we got to do strategic planning. And so I didn't find a deer in the headlight. I found this person with all of this stuff going on in their head and like, oh no, why? Uh, are we going to do this? It's going to be so boring. Is it really needed? So I, I hope that today you'll come away with a much better feeling about strategic planning and you won't have this fear of it. So a lot of times people do kind of shut down. They don't want to really delve into it. And they think it's going to be something that's going to be very hard. But actually, it's not. So I hope by the end of this session, you'll just be excited to go back. And if you don't have a strategic plan, to get one drafted. And then we talk about tips for preparing a strategic plan. I think one of the first things that we really need to do is you need to prepare your board members ahead of time. If they need to be involved, But it's best if you can give them some preliminary information about strategic planning. You need to get their buy-in on the process so that they are going to be willing to participate. And you can do that by really getting them to answer some questions. And the first question is, why do we even need a strategic plan? And then also, what will the process be like? How are we going to develop this strategic plan? How much time is it going to take? So these are two questions that you really need to answer before you really get started. And of course, that first question, why do we need a strategic plan? Well, often small or medium-sized nonprofits may say, well, we're just a small organization. We really don't need to draft a fancy strategic plan. But really and truly, everybody needs a strategic plan, whether you're small or large. There was a statement several years ago, a mentor of mine used this statement, and I think it was very important, and it really made sense to me. It says, if you don't know where you are going, any road will get you there. That's from C.S. Lewis. And when you think about it, if you're just reactionary rather than doing things based on a plan, sometimes you may get off course. So having a strategic plan really helps you to stay focused. It helps your organization to stay focused. And if there's questions about, well, why are we doing this? You can go back and say, well, it's part of our strategic plan. This is what we had agreed to do, and this is where we're focusing our time and effort. So you need that roadmap to keep everybody focused. And then a second part of a strategic plan that sometimes people don't realize is that, and it's down here, the second one is that if you're applying for grants through certain foundations or other organizations, they're going to ask sometimes a specific question: do you have a strategic plan? And it doesn't mean they won't fund you, but they're looking to see whether or not your organization has really given some thought into where you're going down the road. If they're going to give you money, they want to know that you have a plan on how you plan to use that and what you're doing. And so, in order to meet your goals and objectives, the strategic plan actually is going to provide that. It's going to give you those specific objectives, those strategies, and those actions to reach the goal within a certain time frame. So having said that, we're going to look at how you will develop your strategic plan, the time and process. Now, it really depends on your organization. It depends on how large a group you have. Even the personalities of the people within your organization, you're going to have to make that decision, executive director, the board, as to what works best for your organization. Sometimes a group may say, well, we just can't give a full day to it. We are a half day. They may prefer to meet, two different times and meet 2 or 3 hours each time. It may be a week apart, and that's fine. Others may want to say, well, we're going to have a retreat. We're going to go away from the office. We're going to go to the lake or wherever, and we're going to spend all day talking about strategic planning. And that's fine too. But as long as you've got buy-in, people need to be able to say that they're committed. Are they going to be there? You're going to do it twice a week, and you're going to do it after hours, say at 6 o'clock when everybody has left their other job. A lot of times, people are tired at the end of the day, so you may just want to keep it a shorter meeting and just have two different meetings rather than a one-day meeting. But anyway, you need to decide that ahead of time. And I think that really helps people who are participating feel like they have some say-so into how this is going to be done. It gives them some ownership. And also, before you really get into the, nitty-gritty of developing the plan, you really need to look at your current mission statement. What are you doing now? And does it need to be edited or amended to better reflect who you are and what you do? Sometimes foundations or nonprofits, multiple types of nonprofits, You may have heard the term, they talk about mission creep. It's where you may have started off really focused in this one direction, but over the years, maybe you've added additional services or some other needs, and maybe it's not reflected in your mission statement. So I would encourage you and the board to look over your mission statement and make sure that it is current. And then also, not everybody has a vision statement. If you do have a vision statement, look at it as well. Where do you see yourself, or where do you see this organization in the future? What is it that you want to say, 20 years from now, that this organization is about and did? So, looking at both of those are going to help guide you in the future, and it's going to help guide this whole process of developing the strategic plan. And of course, if you make any changes, you're going to need to make sure you get those approved out. Don't just go in there and somebody, edit and then not get the board's approval ahead of time. So, um, okay. And then also, we're going to determine a goal. And you need to, as you're looking at your strategic plan, what is it that you're wanting to accomplish in a certain amount of time? And, you can do a 3-year plan, or you can do a 5-year plan. I've done both. My personal preference is a 3-year plan. I just find that 3 years is easier for people to wrap around what they can accomplish, because there's so many unknowns out there, the economy, things that are constantly changing, that it's a little bit easier to plan with a 3-year plan, see what you want to do, and then be able to make changes if you need to, rather than having this 5-year plan that you're kind of under for a longer period of time. Um, So what I did was I thought, okay, we're going to develop this goal. I wanted to kind of give you an example of a goal. And so I created a fictional nonprofit that works with homeless veterans. And so I wrote the goal to be: due to the increasing demand for quality care for homeless veterans in XYZ counties, the Veteran Care Center will increase services and the living space available to homeless veterans by at least 50 beds by the end of 2027. So this would be at the end of 3 years if we were going to start it in 25. You have the year 25, the year 26, and the full year of 27. And in writing goals, if you've been to any business type training sessions now, that they talk about writing SMART goals. And your SMART goal is, you need it to be specific, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be actionable, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be timely. So you're making sure that the goal that you're setting for your organization meets all of these criteria. And it makes it easier for you to be able to write your details later if you have a really good, SMART goal. Now, another activity that I like to do with organizations and preparing for their strategic plan is doing a SWOT analysis. Some people are familiar with that, others may not. The SWOT analysis is actually an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the strengths and weaknesses that you'll be talking with your board or your group is all internal to the organization. What are the strengths of the organization, and what are the weaknesses of the organization? When you look at opportunities and threats, you're looking at those things that are external to the organization. These could be the economy. It could be how many people in the area are out also trying to raise money. What is your, and I don't want to use the word competition, but who else is out there also seeking, funders and grants? And in doing a SWOT analysis, because you're talking about internal strengths and weaknesses, those areas, sometimes people in a group maybe are a little bit hesitant to say things out loud if they see something that's a weakness. So what I've done a couple of times is I actually use note cards, and I pass the note cards out. In the first set, we talk about strengths, and I kind of go over again, I want you to think about the strengths of your organization. And I give them about 10 minutes to just sit there and they get to write what they feel like are the strengths of the organization. And then once I feel like everybody's through, they don't talk to each other. They're just, each individual doing that. I have them pass those up to me and I keep those. And then we do the same process for the weaknesses. I give them about 10 minutes to think about, what are the weaknesses that our organization have? Is it, are we short staffed? Is it the building? I mean, things that, might be a weakness to the organization. So I do that for each area, and we do the same thing for opportunities, and then we do the same thing for threats. Now, sometimes if you're doing this like in two different sessions, this is almost a good break time because what I find is that I need time to go back and process these. And what I do is I take all of those cards, and if I'm looking at the strength, did I see things that were repeating? Did I see the same thing coming up? So if there were 10 people there and seven of them all said pretty much the same thing, I know that that's probably something that we really need to talk about and address. So what I ended up doing for one of the last sessions that we did, I take the big post-it note, the big ones you can put on the wall, and I put strengths at the top. And then I go back and based on those cards, I actually just list on there the strengths that those people stated. And then the ones that were mentioned several times, I'll go back and put a star by those. Those were ones that really several people mentioned. And I do that for each section. And then that gives people that visual to look up there and go, oh, okay, yes. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. And it also will bring up some dialogue as to differences of opinions, whether or not strengths or weaknesses. But I have found that this has been really good for people to go through. And I had one person come back one time and said, oh, I didn't know that was an issue with an executive director, and it had to do with communication problems, which was a weakness in the community within the organization. And I think had we asked that person to say it out loud, they probably wouldn't have said it, but they were able to put it on the card. And that gives the organization say, okay, well, maybe we need to look at our communication. Maybe we're not communicating as well as we think we are. Because sometimes we don't know, and so sometimes we need some other people to give us that feedback. So the SWOT analysis is something that's just, I think is just really important. It helps you to identify areas that you're doing great, and then also some areas that maybe aren't so great, and also those things where, hey, there's some opportunities out there and some things that we can really, really look at. So now that we have this goal that we had defined, and the goal was that we wanted to add 50 beds to this homeless veterans shelter uh, by the end of the third year. And we've talked about our strengths and our weaknesses and our opportunities and threats. So I have just kind of pulled some things. Again, this is just, I made these up and put them on here. And I'll be honest with you, as I sat down and looked at it, I realized I have a mistake. And mistakes happen, even when you're summarizing. Sometimes things that you think are internal, actually, maybe they're opportunities or maybe they were a threat rather than a weakness. So anyway, but I tried to put these down. And so for this particular organization, for their strength, I put that they had committed staff. And I put that they had community support. And I got thinking about that last night. I went, community support. Well, maybe that should have been an opportunity rather than an internal strength. And then I also put that they were financially sound. And then for their weakness, I put, well, they have limited space right now. Their funding is probably okay for right now, but is the funding going to be okay for down the road? If they're going to have to build, or who knows? They're understaffed, have committed staff, but they're understaffed, and they have outdated software. And then for opportunities, I put down that there's opportunities to get additional grants. There's an opportunity to buy the lot next door if they were going to have to expand. There's opportunities in private gifts. Maybe there are some potential major donors in the area that they haven't tapped into. And then also maybe they could do a little bit more with a greater online presence in the community. And then the threats, as I mentioned a while ago, there is competition for funding. You got to really look at your demographic area and look at, where you're going to get your funding from and who all is out there also asking for a funding. The high prices of materials, if your goal is going to include building materials, I just built a house 3 years ago, and I can tell you building expenses went up extremely. They still have not come back down. So that would be something. And then there's things such as the community perception of the homeless. It might be something that you're going to have to think about your marketing and PR and how you handle things if you're saying you're going to increase to handle, an additional 50 people. Now, this, of course, would probably be for a larger area, not any of the smaller communities. But anyway, so now that we've done our SWOT analysis and we kind of have identified some areas, you would like for people to have input, comment, and kind of have a consensus that these are in fact what everybody is in agreement with. So here we are. We've got our SWOT analysis done. We know that facility space is going to be additional facility space is going to be needed. We're going to need additional funding. We're going to need to have additional staff if we're going to have additional people to be able to do this. So we identified one of these as to be increased funding. That's going to be a major issue. We're going to have to cover the cost to build or add on to house an additional 50 beds. We may have to purchase land if needed, or it may even be another building. And also, we're going to have to add additional staff. And then the second thing is actually, I put it down there, increasing the staff. And I went ahead and put something specific, such as hire at least 4 qualified staff to handle intake, processing, and the care for additional veterans. Okay. So these are two things that we know that if by the end of 2027, we want to have those additional beds, these are two areas that we really need to pay attention to. Any questions so far? Okay. So in writing the strategic plan, you have your vision statement, your mission statement, your goal, and then next we're going to write objectives. And so objective 1, I wrote as increased revenue stream. And this was based on what we had just said, that we were going to need more funding. And then I put down objective 2 would be to increase the number of qualified staff. Okay. Now you can have multiple objectives. I've done them where we've had 4 or 5 objectives, and I've done it where we've had 6 or 8 objectives. It really will depend on your organization and what your goal is that you're trying to meet. Now, for each objective, objective 1 was to increase the funding stream. You now can start identifying, well, how are you going to increase the funding stream? So I wrote down 3 strategies. Number 1 is to increase grant funding. Then number 2, strategy 1B, is to increase private giving. And strategy 1C is to increase online giving. So this is something that you would be able to actually put down and then say, okay, if we can get more grant money, we can increase our private giving, and we can increase maybe online donations. This is going to help us be able to fund the additional space that we need for our veterans. And you may have another area in there. One of these may be stronger than the other. And so that's something that you would just need to look at. So now that we've done our objective, we've done our strategies, now we take each strategy and you're going to write action items in order for you to achieve each strategy. So strategy one was to develop a grant writing plan. So what I did with an action item, let's just say that this particular organization does not have an internal grant writer. They don't have anybody in-house that can handle grant writing. So I put the first action item is to hire a grant writer. You'll also see where I put in what year that they were going to do that. Okay, they need to do that the first year. Okay, then next action item is okay. They need to start researching grant opportunities with corporations and foundations. Again, we got to put a timeline with that. And actually, that needs to happen every year. It's something you can start in year one, and maybe in the first year, you've only identified 3 or 4, but as you get better and better, or your particular grant writer is looking, they may identify other grants. So each year, you would need to continue researching to find if there's other opportunities out there. So that's listed as year 1, 2, and 3. And then the third action item is to develop a calendar for submitting grants. Once you have found these grant opportunities, you need to determine, well, when are they due? When am I going to have to submit these? And you would need to do that again each year 1, 2, and 3. And then your fourth action item would be to actually say how many grants that you want to try to submit each year. And to start with, you may throw something out there and you may or may not hit it, but at least have a goal out there. Let's submit at least 5 grants in year 1. Okay. And then let's bump it up and let's do 10 grants in years 2 and 3. Now that seems like a big jump from 1 to 2, but I found that once people really start in this process, the opportunities, you'll start seeing these more and you'll be able to know where to look for grant opportunities. Now, it may be that you have to scale that back. If you don't meet that grant, it's not a horrible, terrible thing. Maybe you wrote 4 grants the first year, but at least you had a goal that you were shooting for. And then also with the 10 grants, you may year 2 only do 8 and then reach 10 grants by year 3. But at least you have very specific actionable items that you've identified as to how you're going to develop that grant writing plan. Now, you're going to have multiple strategies and you're going to have multiple action items. Once you've done this work, you can go out there and find there's multiple templates to use for doing a strategic plan. This is a very simple layout where it has like the vision statement. You would put your vision statement in there. You would have your current mission statement, and then you would put your 3-year plan goal in there. And then underneath it, you list each one of those objectives. Like I said, you could have 5 objectives across. Here, I just listed 2 of the objectives. And you can see objective 1, increase revenue stream. Okay. Strategy 1, increase grant writing. And then I put the actions items. And if I had had more room on the slide, I would have come down and I would have had strategy, another strategy under increasing the revenue. And it would go all the way down. And then you go on like to objective 2, increase the number of qualified staff. And so I put down as a strategy was to hire an additional 4 staff. The action item start with, well, in year one, we got to develop a job description for those new positions. Another action item would be, let's hire 2 individuals by the end of year two and add two additional by the end of year three. So you're really planning out. I mean, you don't need to hire 4 people in year one. You're going to need to hire those, schedule it out to year two and then year three. And then action items, schedule new employee orientation session within 4 weeks of hiring. You know, once you've hired these people, if you don't have it on the calendar, a lot of times things don't happen. You talk about, oh, we're going to do an orientation. Well, 6 months later, you ask Julie, did she get her orientation? No, it was never scheduled. But by putting it in your strategic plan, that way it's in front of you, and hopefully it will be done on a timely basis. So once you've got this and you feel good about it, it needs to be reviewed by the full board. Hopefully, the majority of the board has been involved in it. It may be that you've had some that weren't able to attend, but it goes to the board for their final approval, and then it becomes your working strategic plan for the next 3 years. So you think, well, great, we've done it, we've got our strategic plan, I've got it printed out, it's in a little binder, and you say, everybody, good job, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, but you're not through. You're almost through, but you're not quite through. Okay, you don't ever want to forget to do the assessment of the strategic plan. Your strategic plan is only useful if you use it. Don't put it on the shelf and forget about it. Worked in education for 27 years. I went through lots of strategic plans, and I can tell you, we used to even have to do them for the system office in Montgomery. In those states, sometimes we never saw them again. So we didn't know if what we sent in was ever used or not. So I tell you, don't put it on the shelf and forget about it. And to review your plan at least once a quarter to see if you're on track. If you said you were going to be doing certain things in that first year, and at the end of the first quarter, you pull it out and go, gosh, I haven't even started that process yet. You need to look at it and go, okay, I need to assign someone. Let's get started with that. Or either I personally need to get on that. You want to make sure that those strategies and those action plans are actually being put in place. And if a chance something needs to be modified, that's okay. You can go in there and make some modifications to it. This is a living document, and it can be changed. And then, of course, at the end of the year, what's really nice is at the end of the year to take your document, go through each one of those actionable items. And what I did several times is I would go through it and I would highlight it in green if we did it, and I would highlight it in red if we didn't, because it made a really good visual effect when you pulled it up in front of everybody and said, okay, look at all what we did do. We had 3 or 4 things we didn't accomplish. And then you can really focus in, okay, well, what happened? Why did we not do this one? You have that discussion about it. Maybe it needs to go away. Maybe it was not a good idea to start with. You delete it. But maybe it was just something that needed to be moved a year or two. And that's fine too. But that was something that was really, I think, as eye-opening to people to see what you've actually accomplished at the end of the year, because we all get so busy and you're doing things, but it's nice to go back and reflect, hey, we are making progress. We are moving in that direction. And so just kind of to recap, strategic planning, it is a process in which an organization's leaders define their vision for the future and identify their organization's goals and objectives. And without a strategic plan, your organization may have difficulty. You can lose focus. You may not be allocating your resources efficiently, uh, adapting to changes in circumstances. You may not be taking advantages of growth opportunities or avoiding any kind of competitive threats. So that's kind of a real quick synopsis of doing a strategic plan. I hope that it kind of laid out that it's not really as hard as what a lot of people want to think it is. I hope it's been beneficial. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any at this time.
You are welcome to unmute or type your questions in the chat.
Thank you. No questions?
Yes, I have one. We are getting ready to go into this process ourselves. I'm new to the area and I'm new to this particular council. And so coming out of the last one that I was in, we just finalized the strategic plan for that one, which took quite a bit of time, but well worth it. Curious, is this something like if we want to reach out to you to see if you could navigate ours, would you be open to that?
Would be, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have any particular website that you'd recommend for helpful templates on like the one you showed us that had the vision, goals, and objectives all in one?
I really don't right now. I kind of that one was one I kind of developed over the years. It's kind of
Hmm.
mine.
Right.
But you can find something very similar. They may use words a little bit different. I would just be honest with you. You can Google strategic planning templates, and you're going to find a lot.
Hmm.
And I'm sure you might, Brittany, do y'all have any resources there that they might could? No? Okay. Um, I do a lot of just research online and just really kind of look and see until I find one that kind of fits. Because some of them can get really complicated.
Hmm.
And so I just try to keep it as simple and as easy for people to follow as possible. You're more than welcome just to take that one and use it. Or I said, I would just Google template, strategic planning template, and see what you come up with.
Okay, sure. Mhm.
Well, Dr. Jones, thank you so much for a wonderful program. Everyone, you'll be getting an email from me with a link to today's presentation and recording, a short 3-question survey, and an opportunity to sign up to be a Carey Center nonprofit affiliate. The Carey Center nonprofit affiliate program currently serves over 370 nonprofits in Alabama and beyond and offers educational programming, professional development, and networking opportunities to nonprofit professionals. Carey Center nonprofit affiliates are the first to learn about upcoming programming, and membership is free. We are excited to announce that we are now offering the Carey Center Nonprofit Professional Certificate. This is an online, non-degreed certificate and offered through a partnership with the Auburn University Office of Professional and Continuing Education and Merit Nonprofit Professional Development and provides a tailored curriculum for nonprofit professionals. Merit is an anytime, anywhere micro-learning platform that builds 6 core nonprofit proficiency areas, including leading, learning, resource generating, planning, managing, and overseeing through 28 learning paths. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you at one of our monthly virtual programs or in person for our nonprofit training series currently traveling the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.